everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Hello. Let's see here. Siva, why don't you lead us in the pledge?
Oh, I don't even know it. I've been gone so long. Sure. Okay, ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well done, well done. All right, let's see here. Visiting Rotarians. Do we have any visiting Rotarians in the room?
Johnson's in the house.
Going around the table here. We have one right here, right, Brian? Brian.
Hi.
President of Arcata Noon, right?
That would be correct.
Yeah.
Can I just say something about Mr. Lovell? I used to work for Brian many years ago as the bookkeeper at his daycare, and of course I was a Rotarian back then because I have been a Rotarian since Paul and I were really good friends. Paul Harrison. And he used to say, let's just say he would say, "Why do you do that every Friday morning? Why do you do that?" Why do I do it, Brian?
I don't know why you get up at 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm still wondering about that.
But you're happy to be a Rotarian.
I am, because of all the good work they do. And you guys sponsored my daughter. It's your club's fault, actually.
That you never see her because she travels.
I never see her because she's in another country. It's all, yeah.
Well, we're glad you joined Rotary.
Thank you, Dick.
Any visiting Rotarians in the back there? Right here. Good to see you, Bob. Yes.
We have Crystal Perez here.
Oh yeah, we have guests here. So Crystal Perez, welcome. Go ahead, Rachel.
Oh, we have Kayla Johnston from my work. She's a CPA and she's looking to join our club.
Yes, Beth.
My daughter Marissa is also an interactor.
Hey, all right.
My daughter Kate, who's also an interactor.
We're all interactors too.
Look at that there.
All right, thanks for coming, guys.
Yeah. All right, and back here. What's up, buddy? Asher. All right.
Mary.
And guest here, yes.
Yes, and we have here Karen Ponstamikas, a former road director, and she's also going to join our club.
And Karen Diemer here from the City of Arcata, who will be our speaker today.
Sojourning Sunrisers. Do we have any travelers out there? Anyone back from vacation? Do anything fun? Did you go anywhere, Karen? No travelers today.
Bob, didn't you go somewhere?
Why don't you tell us where you're going, Maggie?
Well, if all goes well, I'm going to Toulouse for a couple weeks, and then I'm going to be going to Morocco.
Wow. What's the occasion?
I need a vacation, and I need to go far away.
Sounds like fun. Recognitions, where's Steve? How was the fun run? This is from a little while back. We had Bob out there. There's a good picture.
Well, we had a great time at the fun run. Those of you who didn't make it missed a really great event. You only have to wait, another 50 weeks for the next one. It was really cool. I had never done a fun run before. I've done other races, and I'm not really into the race part anyway, but you run around, it's only 5K, and then, you know, we ran and we walked together, and people throw chalk on you, and then you have to stop, and then there's hula hoops, and it's like, oh man, I gotta see if I can hula hoop, of which I was quite embarrassed. Izzy really knows how to hula hoop, and I had to keep picking the thing up. Gravity was taking control. And then you do things like You know, you go by this line of people with squirt guns, and then we jumped rope, and we did all kinds of other stuff. It really was a kick. I think, you know, Rotary does a great job, and it really was fun. When it comes around next year, definitely go for it.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Steve. And Rachel, what was your experience?
I remember running and I saw these people eating blackberries, and it was Steve and Izzy. I don't think that was part of the run.
We're gonna put up a sign next year. Eat blackberries here.
Stop and do hula hoop and then eat blackberries. It was a lot of fun, and the Dutch raffle was great. I won some prizes, so I'm
Twice, didn't you?
Yeah, 4 times. But I
But who's counting?
$100 in raffle tickets, so and I won the door prize. But I got a lot of coffee, so I'm jacked up for a while.
That's great.
All right. I also want to mention too that Barbara actually resigned from our board of directors about a month ago, and we did nominate and vote in a new director, and that would be Mr. AJ Gonzalez here. So. No speech, no grand speech. That's fine. Thank you, AJ. So we're definitely. As some of you may know, Janice has resigned from the club. She had a number of health issues that has held her back, and in her email she said she really wanted to be a part of the club, but if she can't be a part of something, then she doesn't want to be in membership. So it's a pretty big loss for us, as all of you must know. Janice is a pretty big pillar in this club, and so I asked Craig to put together some highlights throughout her tenure here. So if you'll hear me, I'll go through these and just read them off. Janice began her RCAS participation by attending every club meeting in Rotary year 1998 through 99 when Craig was club president. One more than Craig, who missed one meeting that year, so she won. During that year, she combined with Craig to initiate the Paul Harris Foundation auction, where Craig and Janice created handmade items that were auctioned off with proceeds being donated to the Rotary Foundation. In recognition of her support for RCAS, the club board honored her by bestowing upon her a Paul Harris Fellowship. Janice joined the club in 1999 when Greg Foster was club president, and her sponsor was Kathy Frazier, so you know Kathy. In 1999, she joined the District 5130 Youth Exchange Committee, where she was a member until 2011. At the district conference in 1999 to 2000, Janice was awarded New Rotarian of the Year by District Governor Mike Merrill. In addition, she was club president during our centennial year, 2004 to 2005. She served as club secretary for 2 years, was on the board of directors from 2000 to 2017. It's quite the run. She has chaired the Sergeant of Arms Committee for 7 years. During her membership in RCAS, Janice, along with Craig, have hosted 13 Rotary Youth Exchange students, so that's pretty phenomenal. Janice and Craig have attended numerous District 130 assemblies and district conferences, as well as 8 Rotary International Conventions, 3 of which were outside of the U.S. Her most notable personal accomplishments include she was a very active participant with the Rotary Youth Exchange Program. She brought the third grade dictionary project to our club, which is a great project. She brought the Wheelchair Foundation recognitions for club speakers to the club and managed that program for a number of years, which included mailing copies of photos to recipients of the wheelchairs to speakers for months after the presentation. So right after I announced this to the board, it took all of 15 seconds to have the board vote and nominate Janice as our newest honorary club member. So everyone, please just give her a round of applause. And we do have a card, so hopefully you all can sign it. And
it's at the badge box still, I believe. So if you didn't sign it on the way in, please sign it on the way out.
Thank you, Terry. Yeah.
Yes. If anybody's inclined to visit Janice, take her the most beautiful maple leaf you could find, because she collects them starting about this time of year.
Thank you. All right, Carol, Little House A, we had a fun weekend, so let's hear about that a little bit.
Oh yeah, the saga continues. Little House A, it has been rebuilt. We got an exterior coat of paint and trim, and Scott organized all the paint. Thank you all for coming out there. It was a fun day. It was beautiful and sunny, and I think we got just enough drying time in before the rain came. So yeah, so stay tuned. It's a work in progress.
So we had a bunch of folks out there. We had Scott, Carol, you, your husband Steve McCaney, Izzy, you were there, Brian Reeser, you were out there, Sophie was there, Howard was out there, Lisa was out there, myself. Am I missing anybody?
Who was in the back?
My husband
was there.
is
Yeah.
It was dark.
So it was a good crew. And there's a finished product there.
Yeah.
It was a good time.
Yeah, it was. It was great.
And then we've got you want to stay up?
Yeah, all right. You get another chance to do some more community service tomorrow morning at 9:30. Meet out at the Humboldt Coastal Nature Center. That's out on 255. There's a sign on the highway. And we'll have a quick safety talk, and then we're going to try to get, I hope we have a big turnout, because if we do have an extra crew and anybody who's got, a truck to haul any bottles, I talked to Ted Halstead with the Liscombe Slough project, and we could bring that out towards the highway and kind of bag it up and help. He said it's not too bad right now, but we had talked about, helping out there. So tomorrow morning, and then the fun part is to go to Rita's afterwards, and first round's on us. So yes. So how many people are planning to come tomorrow morning? Ooh, I love it. And I know we're gonna have some Rotaract people. Great. Well, we'll see you out there in the morning, and we'll try to many hands make light work. So.
All right. Thanks, Carol. So yes, Adopt a Highway. Where's Rachel? Rachel, you want to talk a little bit about CASA real quick?
Oh, yeah.
Update.
Yeah, so I'm, after this meeting, I think Dustin, Sophie, me, Kayla, Nick are headed to make sandwiches for CASA. So we're making 604 sandwiches. That's $6,040 for CASA kids. And our team has raised so far $1,005. And so, and we're hoping for our team can raise $2,000 because that supports a CASA for a year. A court-appointed special advocate for a child for a year. So we still have raffle tickets. I know some of you have taken some and sold some. If you want to buy them, there's great prizes. And then we will be walking on the 7th in October, which is 6 p.m. Arts Alive, which will be a lot of fun because Arts Alive in Eureka, what can be more entertaining than that? Yeah, that's all I have to say. So yeah, Sandwich Day is a big success. 604 sandwiches, so that's really cool.
No mustard on mine?
Huh?
No mustard on mine?
Oh, okay. I'll remember to make that note.
All right, I'm going to skip systems. Actually, Lynn, you want to talk anything about the Alzheimer's walk?
Oh, well, it's the 14th. I think you guys only have $35 so far, so we're gonna get on all you guys after CASA's over. But I don't know. That's pretty much it. You guys have a team, if you didn't know. And then we're also, my sister and I are doing on October 3rd at Humboldt Cider Co. They graciously have offered to do 10% of their cider sales for the walk. So we're gonna be there just selling a raffle at 5 to 8 p.m. But the 10% is 2 to 10 p.m. the whole day on Tuesday, October 3rd. Maybe next meeting we'll remind or something before if you guys want to do that, because you can just show up, get a cider, and it's between 2 to 10. But if you want to be involved in the raffle, it's 5 to 8, and maybe Rachel and I can bring like tickets beforehand, because you don't have to be there to win, and all of it goes to the walk. So maybe we can work something out where if you get tickets, maybe we'll put some towards you guys' team since you're a little behind. But yeah, that's it.
Perfect. All right, anniversaries is, I'm going to go way back. We've had a little while since we've got to catch up. Jeff, anniversary, beginning of the month, yes?
Oh, God, yeah, anniversary. What we normally do, which is defer. So there's really not much to talk about.
Well, see, my anniversary is not on 9/7, it's on 7/9.
Okay, so Karen, is yours on 9/9 or 9/9?
It's kind of funny. We always used to celebrate on 9/10 because we couldn't remember. But one year my grandmother came to visit and she said, no, you got married on the 9th. And I said, and I had to go look and she was right. But this year it's 45 and we just had a quiet evening at home. I think I went and got pizza or something like that. So that was it.
Let's see, is Joyce in here this morning? No? All right. Mark's here. You had an anniversary on the 15th.
Yes, 15th. We actually had a great weekend. Went up to our place at Trinity Lake and did a nice hike into Granite Lake on Friday. Last Friday. That's why I wasn't here last Friday. So, anyway, had a great 38 years.
Wow.
It's been a nice weekend.
Let's see. Wow, glad you showed up. Yeah, I put you on there anyway.
The next page or whatever, yeah. I was going to say something anyway.
You totally forgot it. Ours was Wednesday night, and we were sitting at home, and we were going to make a nice dinner, and all of a sudden the neighbor unknowingly came over, and she goes, "I made too much turkey chili," and I looked at her, I'm like, and she brought cornbread and everything, and it was still warm, and I'm like, that looks really good. So, sat down and had a glass of wine and ate that, but it's 37 years, Mark, one behind you there, so anyway.
Wow. Birthdays, Ian, that's your birthday, correct?
I did have a birthday, yes I did.
All right, I think, yeah.
We had a normal day, I worked.
Perhaps you could stand up for our viewing audience at home.
I worked for my birthday and everybody brought great food to work, which was great. And now I'm on my last climb ascent to 50, so we'll see what happens this year as I get there.
All right, Maestro, will you lead us in a happy birthday to
Certainly.
you?
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Ian. Happy birthday to you.
Congratulations. Actually, I want to step back. Claire, you went to IFL last weekend? And so did Sophie. You want to talk a little bit about that, your experience?
Well, we went down this weekend, not together, but we were there. My husband Hyder and I went, and it is something that's open to all Rotarians, but most people there were presidents or president-elects. It was really, really a fun and very important, I think, 2-day weekend, and we did a lot of team building activities. We kind of, looked at ourselves and leadership styles, and what else did we learn?
They taught us like what leadership styles to use in different situations. It was pretty valuable. I wish I could have done it last year before I was president, but I still have 9 months to apply my skills. So I would highly recommend going to that if you haven't yet.
Great, thank you. Bill. All right, Izzy, how was your week?
Oh yeah, on Saturday there was the North Country Fair, and Steve and Patty, they were so ambitious to go to the and to go on the parade, and so they dressed up, and I dressed up as Flower, and we went to the parade. Yeah, it was fun. It was.
Who's standing next to you aside from you?
Oh yeah, that's the kinetic sculpture race queen.
That's what she is, the rutabaga queen. I don't know that.
How do you say rutabaga?
That is explain that to people in Austria.
It's our root.
Then on Sunday, I helped paint the house, and it was fun. I've never painted a house before.
Don't tell your dad.
Yeah. And this week was just a normal school week, but today I'm going to Trinity Lake with some other exchange students, and it'll be fun.
It's going to be great.
Awesome. Thank you, Izzy.
All right.
And we have actually, we have an update from Isabella, our outbound exchange student, and she sent us a little slideshow. Let's see here. Pull that up. And to make this a little bit more believable, since it's written in first person, I'm gonna, hey Rachel, you wanna come up? You've got a good voice, you wanna read for me?
She sounds a little sweeter than me. What are you gonna read?
Just read off there and I'll do that. I'll do the clicker. So this is Isabella's first month in Denmark, and go ahead. Pretend you're Isabella.
My first month. My first month has been absolutely amazing. My host family, schoolmates, and the other exchange students here have been extremely welcoming. This is her host family and I when I first arrived in Denmark. I've been learning the names of different animals in Danish, and they've all turned out to be my new favorite words. Jellyfish, butterfly, you can all practice in your own time. Blubber grabber. My school has been really interesting so far. My main subjects are music and English. I've joined a school orchestra and a school choir. These photos are taken in an art exhibit. The colored windows formed a panorama that overlooked the city.
Is he an art piece?
He's got shorts on.
I don't think he's real. I'm fascinated by the culture and opportunities I have here. I feel like I've been given a second chance to try everything that I was too scared to try at home. The weather has been similar to Humboldt, rainy skies. A friend and I have dessert on the dock. Where's he from? Oh. Thank you so much, Arcata Sunrise, for providing me this opportunity. Vlog coming soon.
So, and Howard, we're going to introduce our speaker today.
Our distinguished speaker today, Karen Diemer, who's our city manager for Arcata. Karen and I were chatting beforehand, and she reminded me she went to Humboldt State, and then she worked for the city of Eureka for like 6 years, say. And then you've been working for the city of Arcata, city manager for...
Well, I've been city manager almost 3
years.
But I've been with this city for about 21, 22 years now.
Yes. And she tells me that her biggest challenge is trying to come close to the legend of one of our former city managers, Randy. Yeah. So please give a good round of applause for our speaker today.
Thank you and good morning. I think I was here, it's been a little over a year ago. I think I came in January of 2016. So there was a little bit of, probably a little more doom and gloom in that report. We had just come through pretty severe budget cuts. We had eliminated quite a few positions. And so I guess it's a little easier to stand on some respects and talk about the state of the city now, a couple of years later. But when I think of the state of the city, I really start to sort of look at some of the economic trends, and I tend to start with the private sector and then move towards the public sector and what we're still able to provide in terms of services. So I just have pictures. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Remar mixed use that just went up on 11th and L, pretty high profile corner in Arcata. And I will say that he had a waiting list of potential renters on this before he had it open. So. And wasn't exactly sure what he was going to put in as he was developing it. He wasn't building for a specific suitor at the time. So I took a chance on the market, which paid off for him. Since I've been here, the minor theater went through a real renovation. Has anybody not been? Oh, well, yeah, we got to get busy with the minor, for sure. All of my conversations with the owners and operators of the minor is that they have been able to hit every financial benchmark based on what they predicted going into that project. And what a huge improvement for the downtown area and just the opportunities that we have. They are also working extensively with a lot of nonprofits. I don't know if any of you have done any fundraiser videos or movies there, been out for nights there. They've also been working with HSU, I mean, they do serve beer and wine for those of you that have gone, but they're also doing alcohol-free nights, really focused on the HSU students, to bring the HSU students downtown some of the evenings as well. So they've done a lot of creative things. On the housing side, and we'll talk about one of the challenges in Arcata still is housing on every single level, from our lowest income, up to our much higher level income housing opportunities. But we are still building. The city helped participate in the upper left one we call Creamery Row. That's all affordable housing that's off of O Street, open this year. And then just about 2 blocks, this little, I like the sparkles. And then we sprinkled fairy dust and just housing appeared. I wish it was that easy. But just a couple of blocks away from Creamery Row pops up just was a single family residential unit that put in a duplex. So you see how development can start to spur additional development in neighborhoods throughout. And then we have some larger housing. This was just taken this week. This is what we call the terrace apartments being constructed by Kurt Kramer up on Foster Avenue. This will be 142 units, traditional to what I think we consider student housing in Arcata. There'll be studio and 1-bedroom apartments within walking distance from the state. What's significant, I guess, about that is our general plan talks extensively about trying to densify housing right around the university, with the hope that students will, one, not all have to bring cars when they come to Humboldt, and 2, will live within close walking distance from HSU and ultimately free up some of the single-family residential neighborhoods for young families, and then hopefully aging in our homes over time. Because as we all know, the portion of our housing stock is filled in all of our neighborhoods with students, and we do have a crunch, as I said, on all levels. One of the biggest crunches that we see are young families trying to either reestablish here, move out of their family homes and stay here in that market. So this does help fit with that goal. I think when I was here last, we had just passed our medical cannabis, medical marijuana innovation zone. So we are a couple of years into working through those permits. Unlike the county, where I know we hear about thousands of applications that are being turned in, we only have 33 applications right now for cannabis permits in Arcata, and those are for individual businesses. So we've got several buildings such as this. This is the old Wayne Bear Trucking, but you can see just the infusion of money that's going into even our industrial sector as a result of the innovation zone. And there should be, I think, probably 6 operating permits in that building. So even with 33 permits that are on slate right now to potentially be approved, it doesn't mean it's taking over the entire West End Road area. So economic trends, there's a few numbers in here for Howard. I said last time I came, I had a ton of numbers and graphs and pictures and how our budget was doing good and bad, and people were like, it's too early for numbers, Karen. So Howard was like, how could you do State of the City with no numbers? So a few numbers for Howard. Trends are up, so that's the good news for us. Sales tax is up, hopefully that's good for everybody here. Property values are up, that's good and bad. We've seen trending at about 7% now for close to 3 years in property prices going up in our community. With that, ultimately property taxes come up and the city is seeing the portion that we get back to our general fund in property taxes. As is TOT. TOT is our transient occupancy tax. So that's a tax that people pay when they stay in hotels, Airbnbs, VRBOs in our community. I was very concerned about TOT. I mean, it does seem kind of like a long time ago. It's the last day of summer. Happy equinox. But last winter was horrible for our hoteliers in this region. How many people remember we had northbound traffic closed, southbound traffic closed, east-westbound traffic closed. You couldn't get into Humboldt County. And that took a toll on our hoteliers. But we do seem to have rebound quarter for quarter. We are still up in our TOT. So all of those economic trends are up. I always just think this is interesting. These are alphabetical, so it's not saying who's the highest sales tax producer in Arcata. But it does still, we're not a completely dependent on sales tax community, right? The truth is our largest performing sales tax industry is food and restaurant and hotels in this region. That's not standard for communities. 5 of our top 25 are gas stations for our largest retailers. So you can see in that trend, we are not retail based, although sales tax is incredibly important to Arcata and our general fund, the community services that we can provide. We're certainly based on decisions that we've all made over the course of time, not dependent on large retail, big box, medium box, obviously in Arcata. So translating into some of the public sector projects, I think what myself and the council is proud of is that we've been able to continue to balance large and small scale projects even through some very difficult economic times, of which Randy probably took the brunt of for several years. We are in the process of completing what we call Humboldt Bay Trail North. In fact, I think we are paving today, starting at 7 this morning. So the section that we're working on, don't have a little laser on here. The section that we're working on right now spans from Samoa Boulevard down to just north of Gray Cut. So this is a picture of, this is a small bridge structure. This is a $4.1 million construction project. So, we talk about the economic development of restoration and trail projects. They bring real money to our community. Of that $4.1 million contract, we'll hold out, but up to $600,000 of that would be what we refer to as Measure G money, which is extra sales tax money that comes straight to the city to work predominantly on transportation, both trail and road projects, and then police services. So we have been setting aside monies out of Measure G for several years to fund whatever the gap is in this project, but the remainder of those funds are all coming from state and federal grants. So just a few pictures. That's another one. The reason that this section is so expensive is that we have 5 major water crossings, and those bridge structures are just very costly. So this is driving piles. This is obviously on Highway 101. And we got lucky. Of, I think, 26 piles, we only had one that we really hit something unknown, about 35 feet down. So, okay, let's move over a little, try again. Unfortunately, it wasn't the first one. It was like, number 19 or something. And after the first one, we would have just been like, no. So it's actually, construction is not very smooth. Local Arcata-based construction, McCullough Construction, got bid on this job, so it's great to see a lot of local work happening on this project. This is a small overlook that is right past what I call the Gannon Slough Bridge, right on 101. But as we whip by, that section of 101, there really are some beautiful scenic areas. You will still have the woods of the highway behind you, but just tune it out for a minute, and that's what you'll be able to overlook and see, and just a picture of the construction. So as I said, we're hoping, I should advertise this date, we're right around November 15th. We do hope to be doing a grand opening of this section of trail. And then we'll start to work north. So the bottom of this map is Sunset Avenue here in Arcata where the state park is. That's where the trail currently ends. And we are the next push, the council just Wednesday night approved a negotiation for some private property acquisition that we will need to do between Sunset and the St. Louis overpass. And then the hope is that we'll ultimately connect with the Hammond Trail going north, and then with the Andy Murray Trail to the east. Section by section on these for sure. Other major projects with Measure G are, we have a significant paving project this year. We've just completed Butterbell. It was in pretty dire straits, but it was a major reconstruction that also would probably come in at about $950,000 for that road. So paving isn't cheap anymore for sure. And then South 8th Street, we were able to take onto that project. So we take it block by block, little by little. I don't know, Carol, was this Rotary involved at all in Greenview?
They came and talked, but we didn't.
Okay, so Greenview Park, part of Arcata, we have an incredible park and rec system. I'm super biased, I came from that side of local government. But we try to do one, if we could, 2 parks a year, but really we have about the capacity to redo a park a year. Greenview Park, severely dilapidated park. We had the neighbors, it's always hard. We probably have about 5 neighborhood parks that are still in really sad 1970s state. But the neighbors on this park came forward and said, we're going to raise the funds because we want to get to the top of the list. And during their very first meeting, they had 2 young children that were in wheelchairs, had mobility impairments for life. They came to that meeting and said, we want to be part of the planning. And that neighborhood rallied and said, we are going to bring a fully inclusive playground to Humboldt County, and it's going to be your neighborhood Greenview Park. And so they have spent a couple of years fundraising, because it just about doubles the cost of a park. To do predominantly, it's the surfacing, instead of having a chip surface or a sand surface if you're in Southern California, is a poured in place rubber. So it's really ADA accessible for both walkers and wheelchairs. And we are now in construction in Greenview. So they raised, I think, close to $200,000, and then the city was able to find grants to come in and match that to do this park. And you can't really see it, I mean, just this week we're installing the first piece of playground equipment. So we really like to open things right when the rains hit in November. That's a good trend for us. Have a short construction season, we get it all done and enjoy it for the winter.
And I'll add to that, between Rotary Park and this park, my understanding is that the playground equipment manufacturer usually sends crews out to assemble the equipment, but they've been working on training Arcata city staff, because we're building so many of these parks that they're going to train city employees to do the assembly, so they don't have to send crews out to do the assembly. Everywhere else, the manufacturer comes out and assembles them.
Yeah, so we're probably 15 years into that process. We do have crews that are set up. So the cost of just sheer installation of this would have added probably about $75,000 to the cost of it. We just can't afford to keep up with, you know, sort of the renovations that we need to do in the community. So yeah, kudos to our park staff that have taken, and our construction staff, the time and the effort to learn how to install and meet pretty stringent state standards around safety in playgrounds. Because we do save thousands and thousands of dollars every year doing that install. Of course, it takes a little longer, so we're always, you know, working with the neighborhoods. Please wait, please wait. But it does make a huge difference. So yeah, this will be our staff that you see out there. If you swing by, it's on Lewis Court. Over the next few weeks, we'll be installing that.
And thank you for not letting them off the hook today.
Yeah. And so we did a small, some people call it campfire circle, but it's kind of like a half circle. Just a little presentation area a lot of people wanted to do. We have talks at our Marsh Interpretive Center down at Arcata Marsh. People have always said, can't you do like an outdoor setting for that? So we had a couple of people that brought some funding forward. So, you know, we still just try to mix our big projects with small little things that are responsive to community requests that are coming in over time. So if you have a small outdoor presentation that Rotary wants to do, you should definitely come down and utilize this new space. Overlooks Butcher Saloon, it's beautiful. I mean, I think I'd be a little remiss if I didn't talk for just a minute about some of the community challenges. I mean, you as Rotary Group know how many fantastic things happen in this community every single day. But we certainly have faced some challenges, and definitely have faced some challenges this last 6 months. I would still say, and I'm open to other suggestions to this list of things that we should be working on. That's really the core of why I like to go and talk to groups. CASA and community safety, I still think, is the #1 concern in this community. Followed by, we've had a lot of discussion over the last year, in part, you know, coming out of the election cycle, but even prior to the election, about racial discrimination and specific safety around racial tensions in Arcata. Housing, we talked about really at all economic levels. Sea level rise is also something that's going to be very real for our community, and there is a lot of discussion about trying to figure out land use codes. How are we going to start to restrict and incentivize certain types of development where we know that development in 30 to 50 years is going to be living with water. And this isn't something we're going to stop from happening. We have 6 major watersheds and creeks that go through Arcata. So the impacts of sea level rise will be seen on the bay, but they're also going to be seen up in really interesting neighborhoods around town as those creeks and slough channels make their way through towns. And we have creeks that literally go under a lot of buildings here through downtown. You know, in the old days, we just built right over them. So, and I can remember standing on a friend's wine cellar when she owned a restaurant here, and the floorboards were breaking, and I could just see the creek like rushing. And we just built right over. So There are going to be some real impacts, not only to just coastal properties in Arcata as we work on sea level rise. So tune in, certainly if you have any low-lying property, because we're really having a lot of discussion about that at this point. We're actively working on formulating what retail cannabis regulations should look like. So we have cultivation and manufacturing on the medical side regulations in Arcata. I'd say for the most part, they're working well. We have the ability to support small niche manufacturing, which is the bread and butter of Arcata's economy. So that's what we focused on when it came to the industrial side. With the legalization of non-medical marijuana, we need, as a community, to really have a discussion about what we want retail sales to look like. Do we want retail sales on the plaza? Do we not? Do we want a quota number system of we're going to issue 4 retail licenses, 10 retail licenses, or we're going to have unlimited retail licenses, but they're only going to be in these 3 segments. Do we want to cluster them all in this neighborhood? Do we want to specifically spread them out one in every neighborhood? I mean, those are the types of decisions that, at least initially, we should be making as a community. The state is also working on regulations, and they may come in and, kind of override all of it. But as a starting point, we should decide what we want. So that's a conversation that the council is going to start to undertake. Right now, our Economic Development Committee and the Planning Commission are working on some things, but they'll make their way to the council level soon. So please think about that, and if that's something as a business and Rotary that you have an interest in, let me know. We'd be happy to come and just do a charrette and get ideas from you as well. And then, I don't think I'll ever stand up before you and say we have no major infrastructure issues in Arcata. But we do have some really significant projects on the forefront. Probably financially the largest is our wastewater treatment system. We don't have any part of our system that's probably less than 30 years old. A lot of them are over 40 and 50 years old. So I do really stand before you say it's not that we've had shoddy maintenance over the years. I say we've really rocked our maintenance, the fact that we've gotten 50 years out of some of these components, twice their expected lifespan. But they just finally do need to be replaced at a certain point in time. So it'll be the most expensive infrastructure project this community has seen in 30 years since we really built a good portion of our plant. We could be looking at upwards of a $40 to $50 million project coming into our treatment system. Ultimately, though, that is the backbone of what supports all of our growth and all of our businesses. So we will look for creative ways to do that. We also have a lot of needs in water parks and streets. I wanted to talk for a minute on some of the work that the community has been doing, the city's been trying to mostly just support on racial equity in Arcata. We have had just countless meetings over the last year and a half about concerns that we have heard not only from students of color that have come up to Humboldt State University, but also faculty and staff, new faculty and staff in our K-12 systems, new businesses that have opened in Arcata that are minority-owned businesses that have had experiences in Arcata that unfortunately I think would shock most of the people in this room. I have had many personal stories shared with me about very explicit racism, things being said, services being denied, rents being increased on site when they go to look at a housing, that was listed on Craigslist, and they show up and all of a sudden the rent happens to go up. There's, a faculty of color, the rent goes up a couple $100 and they're not sure if it's available. 2 weeks later, it's still being listed back at the old rent price. So, I mean, these are real life stories that sadly have happened in Arcata. The most common response, and quite honestly, maybe embarrassingly, the initial response I had was, oh, I can't believe that. Not in Arcata, but unfortunately it is real experiences, and I've heard definitely enough of them from people that I love and trust, some that have lived in this community for longer than I have, that have had, that then look at me and say, are you serious, Karen? I've dealt with that my entire 30 years here, So this isn't new, it's not unique to Arcata. We see it nationally happening, on the headlines every single day. What I hope is unique to Arcata is how we respond to things. So we've had, as I said, a series of meetings. Out of that meetings, and I'll just be brief, I'm happy to talk about it further. But we finally moved to a point of saying, what can we do as a community? So we've had 7 initial initiatives that have come out of a series of community meetings. One is called Not in Our Town, and it will just sort of be a campaign, an awareness campaign, that I think for the most part, everyone I do talk to in Arcata says, absolutely, we want to be a community that doesn't tolerate hate and bias on a daily basis in our community. So the Not in Our Town is a local campaign that's based on a national model that really just talks about not tolerating hate in your community and what that looks like and what that means. So our Vice Mayor, Sophia Pereira, and Lorna Bryant from KHSU are going to lead up that campaign. And then we have the police chiefs from the University Police, Don Peterson, and Arcata Police Chief Tom Chapman, that are going to be doing specific police and student forums. I don't know if everyone's familiar, but HSU's demographics have changed tremendously. They are over 50% non-white serving institution up here in Humboldt County. That has changed dramatically just in the last 5 years. They are also, their incoming freshman class is over 50% first-generation college student. So these students are coming up into an experience that they're not as supported in as I think college students in the past that came from highly educated families into our community. So it's just a real different demographic. And we've had obviously some large-scale increase in violence and a couple of real high-profile cases that have created a lot of dialogue on campus. So the 2 police chiefs are coming together to have conversations specific with students about that. We have a group that's working on a bias reporting tool. We know that less than 1/3 of bias and hate incidences in any community go reported. So how do you start to gather data to really say this area of a high school or this area of town really have a predominant number of bias incidents happening so that you could really have strategies that meet that. We also know there's a ton of great things that are happening to celebrate cultural diversity in Arcata, and we need to do a better job of advertising those. So we've got a group that's working on just gathering all of the great stuff that's happening to get the word out. We have this group that's working specifically on housing equity. And then we just have a grassroots group that showed, I don't know if any of you went to the community potluck that happened the first week of school. There's a group just of residents in Arcata that have started Home Away from Home. And they're just going to take it back to the roots, food, music, and talk up at the D Street Neighborhood Center. They're inviting students, they're inviting new faculty, they're inviting new businesses just to come in and eat and talk and meet people and make those connections. And then we are going to be rolling out a lot of training and education over the next year, and I'll just give that information to you. I'd like you guys have a clock, it's 8 o'clock. Always appreciate citizen volunteers. So I will just finish with questions. I think you guys tried to get out of here at 8. Okay, wasn't sure how much time I had. Questions that you have about the city?
About the cannabis situation, what's your sense of the number of underground enterprises that are now becoming legalized? How successful do you feel that's been in bringing these enterprises above ground?
Yeah, I'd say Arcata was lucky on 2 fronts. One is we don't have the real rural large grows that we're dealing with that the county does. 2, I would say I have no idea how many illegal indoor manufacturers are still happening. I would say it's probably a lot. But the ones that are taking the steps to go through and become legitimate, I think are also doing a really good job, and they're creating safe spaces for their employees and systems to file their income and get into the system, and they're out there talking about it, and I think that's encouraging more people to come into legitimacy in that route. The other piece for Arcata was our high energy use tax. So this community passed an excessive electricity use tax, and at the time we had a huge grow house. We talk about one single thing that was affecting our housing stock. It was grow houses in this community. The day that tax passed in 2012, we had 1,200 meters, 1,200 houses that basically had completely been converted. There is no other use I have been able to identify in all of those years that would have accounted for that electricity use. We had 1,200 homes. This last month we had 53. So that tax, without a single dime into enforcement, drove so much of that activity out of our community, and it's been really successful. Okay, I'm gonna sit down. I know, I'll be here to answer questions, but I know Dustin wants to get those of you that have to watch.
So don't sit down yet in appreciation of your speaking today. No, that was fascinating. For speaking today. I mean, we've got a donation in your name to the Rotary Foundation, so thank you so much. Raffle time. Who's doing the raffle today? Sarah, you're up. Pretend you hear the Price is Right music or somewhere.
202-472.
Read the last figure.
472.
472.
First off? 472.
You show up.
Oh, there's lots of boxes.
Yeah, I think together.
Cool. That doesn't happen.
Excuse me, I gotta get two fresh.
Here you go.
Thank you. And I've got 6 more tickets.
202-484.
484 was the last three?
Yeah, 484. Maybe they just walked out the door.
Oh,
There you
Oh,
go.
hi.
that is even drop.
Winner.
Did she get the prize?
All right, announcements. Lisa.
So real quick, everybody's got a flyer on their table. A reminder that our Taste of the Holidays is coming up. I don't know if you know, but Ray has taken on a different position at Mad River, so he's traveling a lot, so he's asked me to step up to be chair. And today, I asked Sarah, and she's going to help me co-chair. AJ and Rena and Rachel and Nick and people that are helping and doing lots of other things. So it's going to be an awesome event, and I'm trying to get started early. So anyway, just wanted to remind you, and we'll have bigger announcements later, along with a song.
Perfect, thanks Lisa. Brian, you had an announcement.
Yeah, our club has decided to do a fun thing. We're doing a football pool, but we're doing it between McKinleyville and Arcata High. There's 2 games, one of which is a week from Friday, and the other one is in October. And if anybody's so inclined, each game, the prize win is $250. It's a $10 buy-in. You get a name on each sheet, so come see me afterwards, and we'll get you in line to win $250 and have some fun with Arcata and McKinleyville. Although, if anybody has heard, McKinleyville is forfeiting their game tonight against Del Norte because they don't have enough players to play.
Oh. They say it's getting better.
Yeah. But anyway, if you're interested, come see me right afterwards. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Scott?
We're also starting the PR campaign back up again, since it's starting to be the Taste of the Holidays coming up, and also the Spring Fundraiser. So please, if you haven't already done so today, please check in on Facebook. Let everybody know that we're here. It allows them to go to our Facebook page, which allows them to go to our web page.
Thank you. Exactly, yeah. Thanks, Scott. Any other announcements out there?
Don't forget the CASA Kid Walk. Raffle tickets. Rachel is here. I just bought mine. You can too on the way out.
I'd like to give another props out to Brian Lovell here, who, as Cam did many, many years ago for me, Brian has accepted my offer to mentor him into my role in the district as the outbound officer. So this year he is shadowing me, and next year I'll shadow him, and there he goes. So,
You know, I gotta say, I was at this meeting. Thank you. I was at this meeting, and Ian was just, I felt pity. But you know, it's gonna be hard shoes to follow because Ian's done such an amazing job with that program over the last few years. So anyway, looking forward to working with him.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you. Any other announcements? All right, then, up next, one more.
Sorry.
Got one more.
Backpack for Kids is going to be starting up the first week of October. And so we're going to be setting it up over here. We're going to have a little training session as far as how the bags are packed. But we're probably going to do that the second week because I'll be gone 1 week. But anyway, just wanted to remind you that's starting back up. Okay?
Great, thank you. Next week, final Friday, bring your checkbooks, debit cards, we've got the square now, so let's raise some money. And we're running a little late here, so I'll leave you with a quote. The only impossible journey is the one you never begin. So with that, thanks for showing up today, and I will see you all next week.